Do you remember normal? It was a Monday morning commute. A playground with the kids. Normal was deciding between a booth or a table. But now, normal looks new. New ways to spend our time. New ways we interact with each other. New ways we experience God. Normal changed. Will you?
Okay, I think we're ready. I think all the stages is set. All the, what are they called? When people, the roadies. The roadies have all done their job. And I'm going to hand over to Neil, who's going to share some exciting and important news for things that's not an announcement as such, but it is a discussion. So, Neil, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Jane. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. We all here looking forward to hearing where God may be taking us in the coming season. I'm really excited to be sharing with you this morning.
You're not on, Neil. You're on you. Come on, Neil.
I'm so excited that I forgot. Am I on now? Right, for the sake of all of you at home, good morning. Hey. So we are having a family meeting this morning, and if there is an announcement to be made, it is this. We are exploring becoming one church with Beulah Family Church. That's the announcement. We're exploring becoming one church with Beulah Family Church. But I am not making an announcement that is done, that is definitely happening. I'm making an announcement that is a journey that we are on. And that may not come as a surprise to many of you. Many of you, through the sermon series that we did with Beulah Family Church, kind of felt that this was on the cards anyway. But because we were aware that there was uncertainty and it wasn't clear, that we wanted to take an opportunity, which is what we're doing today, to say exactly what it is that we are doing, exactly what it is that we aren't doing, and to invite you to journey this with us. We, as I say, it's not a done deal. We have very genuine questions. There are practical things that we haven't even begun to journey together. And I really want to invite you, as this is something that will affect you, to seek God and to pray and to discern through prayer whether this is God's will for us in this next season. And as you do that, I want to ask, don't ask, is this a good idea? Don't ask, does this make sense? Is this going to be profitable for us? I want you to ask, is this God's idea? Because sometimes God asks us to do things that don't necessarily make sense, and it doesn't mean that they are not therefore the right thing to do. If this is God's leading for us, then irrespective of the uncertainties, the question marks, if this is God's will for us, we should do it. So this isn't a done deal, but I have to be very honest with you that I think this is God's leading for us. I've heard personally quite clear direction. I've been journeying this a lot longer than the rest of the elders and than the rest of some of you who are aware. But I'm convinced that this is where God is taking us, and I think it's for good reason. And so I'm going to explain that today. But this journey for me started just over a year ago. In October 2019, I was in Gloucester at a Regions Beyond hub. And Steve Oliver called Joseph up for prayer. Steve Oliver had brought a prophetic word to Beulah Family Church a few years ago that they would be a centre from which revival would break out. And so Steve Oliver had called Joseph up as a representative of Beulah Family Church to pray for him. And already being good friends with Joseph, I took the opportunity to come up and pray for him as well. So I laid my hands on Joseph and I was praying. As the meeting went on, Steve led the prayer somewhere else and we were praying for other people. And Trevor Payne said to me and Joseph, can I just pray for you two quickly? And so Trevor Payne laid hands on Joseph and I and began to pray. And I became very aware that I was standing on the stage. I'd had to kind of stand on the stage to get around, to be able to lay hands on Joseph. And I was standing on the stage, and I felt very kind of exposed. And so I knelt down. And I knelt down beside Joseph, and Trevor Payne was praying for us. And in the moment, as I was knelt down beside Joseph, I've never heard the audible voice of God, but I felt a very clear sense of God saying to me, you are going to work together and you are going to serve him. And it was a very clear sense. You know, there are times when you're like, that is absolutely God that's just spoken to me. And it may be that I'm wrong. It may be that moment and everything that's built from that moment, including today, maybe I haven't heard from God, and we are open to that possibility as we journey this. I'm personally convinced that was God that spoke to me. And we've built from that moment. I didn't say anything at the time. It felt a bit strange. How do you tell a guy, God's just told me that we're going to work together and I'm going to serve you? How do you do that? So I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything to Cheryl when I came home. But a few weeks later, I was at Joseph's house. This was before lockdown. And it came out. And Joseph beamed. And he didn't beam because I said that I wanted to serve him. He beamed because he was aware that a few years ago, Steve Oliver had shared with Paul Barrett and with John Cleveley and with a guy called Owen Hilton, who leads a church called the Beacon in Brixton. He shared with them a sense of, I think you guys should work together. I think it would be really good for you. And we've kind of, Joseph and I have, as we've explored and as we've prayed, we've kind of felt, perhaps it was for such a time as this. You know, Paul Barrett, John Cleveley, Owen Hilton, it didn't feel right at the time. They didn't pursue it. Perhaps it was for such a time as this. And so we've been praying into this. Joseph and I have been dreaming, praying, thinking. But with everything that was going on here, as we journeyed our financial situation, it just felt right to just put it to the side for a time. And so it felt right. I think it was about June. I shared it with you all, I think. And we started journeying it. We've had a few joint elders meetings together, and then obviously we had the series that we did in September where we were kind of laying a biblical foundation for unity. And we were kind of testing it out. If we're to look at this, what reasons are there to look at this? And so we had that series, and I spoke to you from Philippians, and I said that the work that God started in us, that he's going to complete. Joseph came and spoke to you from Luke 5 and said, you know, that's time when Jesus got into the boat with Peter and said, cast your net on the other side. You know, something that made no sense, I'm sure, to an experienced fisherman who had tried and caught nothing all night, and yet he did it because Jesus told him to. And then John spoke to us from Romans 15 and reminded us that there's only ever been one church. It's the Church of Jesus Christ, and that it is good that we seek to mend the kind of the fracturing that's happened since the Reformation. And John Cleveley came and he spoke to us from Ezekiel 37, and he said, you know, God is a God who brings dead things to life, who joins things together, bone to bone, sinew to sinew. And John called us to reflect on our churches. He called us to reflect on Croydon, and he asked us to. He said, you know, do you see dead situations? You know, could God be at work in these things? Could God be bringing two things together at the end? He talked about two sticks in the hand of God. And we kind of went, you know, God, let that be Beulah and Jubilee. Let this thing that is, you know, that we can't see what exactly it is, but it's in your hand. And we pray that as you join it together, that something wonderful happens. And then Trevor came and he spoke about the great collaboration. That's kind of where we've got to date. And there are three reasons why I think that this is God's leading for us. One is prophetic, one is practical, and one is pastoral. And I'm not going to rush through these, but I'm going to say these three things, and then I'm going to stop and give time to Q&A, which Jazz will compare, and you'll be able to answer questions from home as well. But Jazz will talk to that soon. Prophetically, we've carried at Croydon Jubilee Church a vision for 7 congregations. And we've not seen that realised. We've not planted a single congregation. And I don't know why that is, but we haven't. I believe that that is still something that God would call us to do. Beulah Family Church have carried a vision for a church of 1,000. Similarly, they've not walked into that. They're a similar size now than they were a few years ago. And there's a sense for Joseph and I that as we pursue this, that there's the possibility that if we were to do this, that we could become heirs of one another's promises and that we could see these things worked out in our lifetime. That when we come together, you know, that if we enter a chrysalis as two things and come out as one new thing together, that we can be heirs of one another's promises. That we could be heirs to the promise over them, that they would be a source of revival, that we could be that too. And we believe that. We've been saying that throughout lockdown, that this shaking, this sifting that's been going on is not for no reason. And that they too could be an heir to the multicoloured baby. They could be an heir to the Adullam's cave, where the indebted, the depressed and the discouraged could come and find hope and healing. There's a sense that we can become heirs of these promises together. And I shared with you in September, didn't I, the picture about the generals and how they were only having small successes, and that if they were going to really defeat the enemy stronghold, that they needed to work together. And they needed to pray and play together. And that's what we've begun to do as eldership teams, and I'm looking forward to, as we go on this journey and as we explore becoming one church, that there will be prayer meetings together, there will be perhaps training nights via Zoom together. We can begin to work together. So that's some of the prophetic reasons why I think God's calling us to this. Practically, I think the options that this affords us is clear to see. You know, as we work together, as we share resources, as we plan together, as we draw on the different giftings and skills and interests from the two respective churches now, the opportunities for us are great. And we've seen that. We've seen this in Sharpen Up. We had a group of people who are interested in growing in the prophetic called Sharpen Up. They began to partner with a similar group of people from Beulah. This was before lockdown. And we were mutually encouraged in coming together. It was good for us to come together with people from another church and to find encouragement. And things like that they're open to us now. We don't have to become one church to do that. But as we become one church, as we are of one mind of, what are our vision? What's our values? What's our vision? How can we do this together? That we wouldn't be so concerned about our thing, but that our eyes would be lifted to people beyond our fellowship, to the church beyond our walls. And so I really think that as we do this, that we could. We read as well in Acts, I'm believing this for all of us, if we do this, it says in Acts that the early church enjoyed the favour of all the people. And I'm really believing that if we do this, that the council will take note. They'll go, there's this church. We don't have a name if we did it. There's this church. And they've got congregations all over the borough, and they're doing some amazing stuff together, and they seem to be working really well together. I believe we'll see counsellors with our name on the tip of their tongue, wondering what it is that we're doing, wondering how it is that we can serve the community better, how it is that we can model something. I believe that we'll see that. I also think that I knew I should have had my notes. There's one more thing, practically. What was it? I can't remember. It's obviously not that important. It is. It's all important. This is exciting stuff. Anyway, pastorally then. We've shared in our vision series in March that we want to be a people who encounter God and impact our world. We've said that we're going to do that by giving and growing and going. There are gifts. There are gifts in our congregation that need space to grow. And so we need to multiply opportunities to multiply gifting. We need to make space for those of you who are gifted to do more than just lead life groups, We need to make space for those of you who have just a wide variety of gifts to serve and see your gifts grow and mature and be an even greater blessing to the body of Christ. And so I think that as we partner together with a view to seeing congregations established all over the borough of Croydon in unity, together, from a shared pool of resources with a shared vision and values, that there will be space made for all of us to grow in our giftings and to serve the body of Christ and to see God glorified. Now, one thing I wanted to say at the start, which I don't know if it's been clear from what I've said, but I will say it. We are not talking about becoming one mega church. We're not talking about pooling both churches together into one meeting, one local expression. We're talking about churches, one church in multiple locations around the borough. We're not talking about a takeover of one church by another or vice versa. This is a mutual coming together, a shared sense of God's leading, that partnership will be good, that we can do more together than we can apart, that like that picture in Luke 5 that Joseph spoke to us from, that we would be brothers and sisters calling to one another, would you come and help us? Would you come and help us? And so that's what we're looking at. So immediately, if we were to do this, I don't know, I mean, an awful lot will change, but I'm not going to ask you to go and, start worshipping at Thornton Heath or vice versa. But a lot will change. There is a shaking going on. There is a call to unity going on. And I think that the opportunities of this thing that I really strongly believe that God is calling us to is going to change the way we do church. It could change the way we do church. It could change the way that we do mission. And I really believe, I want to ask you, as I say, to consider this with us. No firm decisions have been made yet. There genuinely are still so many questions that remain unanswered. But please join us in seeking God. And as I say, asking, not is this a good idea, but God, is this your idea? Because if it's his idea, it'll all come good and it'll all be good. So that's it. I'm gonna hand over to Jazz in just a moment. You can see by what I've presented to you that there's still questions answered. I haven't given you much concrete stuff to hang your hat on, but we're going to open the floor to some Q&A, which Jazz is going to run for us. And look forward to hearing your thoughts, your questions, and please do pray. That's what I was going to say. Sorry, Jazz. I won't say it. Yeah, great. Thank you. Yes, sorry. So Jim is not here because he is still suffering under the effects of COVID. So he's very tired. He would be here with us, but he's not very well. So that is why Jim's not here. There's nothing untoward going on in his absence. Thanks, Jazz.
Cool. Okay. So bear with me because I've never done anything like this before. I'm trying to hold a microphone and try and read questions on Facebook. So what we want is, if you've got questions, we don't know how long the session's going to last. We're going to see what happens. If you've got questions, I'd love to be able to hear them. It might mean that you might need to come closer to the stage, and then I will repeat the questions for the benefit of everybody at home, and obviously so that everybody in the hall can hear what the questions are. And if you're at home, I am holding my iPad, and in some vague hope, I'm hoping that I can read your comments and direct the questions at the same time. Multitasking. I can do it. Okay, cool. So who's going to kick us off? Has anybody got anything if you've got a loud voice, you can shout from your seat, I think, but ideally I'd like you to come down here and ask it. Come on, Luca, kick us off. We always need someone to kick us off, don't we? Just come down here, and if you ask me, and I'll repeat it for everybody.
I think if the elders believe that this is what God has said, I think it's incumbent on us to, all of us, to pray, to seek God earnestly. I think if there is a question, it's about, you can have a great vision, and you've mentioned about people
making space to...
Making space for. I spoke to you previously about how I think that how we all work together and how the structure, leadership, and how people are inspired to do things really needs to change across the land. Not just us. I think whatever you do, it doesn't matter as long as you're responding to God and you're following what the Bible says. But I think that there have been blockers to that in the past. So I think, Sally's wisdom from this morning was fantastic. Word of God, she preaches the Word of God to children every week. There's lots of that, and I think we need to tap into it. So if there's a question, what's going to change, or how can we change so that we don't just repeat the same mistakes? Because I feel, personally, on one hand, encouraged and enthused about what we're saying. On the other hand, I feel a little bit wary from maybe having gone through things like this in the past, feeling quite damaged. I'm sure there are people who have felt damaged, and we have, been through painful experiences. Even in the New Testament, we hear of painful experiences, and my heart aches for the people who have suffered over the years. So, a not big question. Sorry, but I think my question to you is, how can we listen? How can we all participate more effectively, rather than it being purely a sort of, the classical top-down led way of leadership, which I don't think works. I don't think that's God's model.
Okay, I'm going to try and sum up what Luca said. There was an awful lot there, but Luca began by recognising that if the elders and as a church we believe that this is right, then there is an onus on us to pray into this. And thank you for that encouragement and that exhortation that we need to be praying into this whole thing. But I think if I've got it right, and Luca had a lot to say, the heart of his question is, what does one church, becoming one church, look like in terms of encouraging other people to participate and giving people the opportunity to exercise their gifting? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I say something quickly? I think apologies. I think my mic is still on, isn't it? Luca, thank you so much. I think one thing, one distinction I want to make is that I don't want you all to serve my vision. I really want us to shape together the vision of the church. And when I did the vision series in March, I gave the example of Ian Brown. And Ian, forgive me for embarrassing you. It's so good to see you with us this morning. Ian Brown... Ian Brown led Sharpen Up after Nicky Pearson moved on. And he led us into a couple of things that I would never have done, but they proved to be very fruitful. We had the prophetic consultations, and they proved to be very fruitful. Even so, I would give Ian Brown as one example. I wouldn't have led that. Ian was released to lead, and it shaped something which was a blessing to us. Similarly, I had no vision for how we would do visuals and how we would do the stream. And Sam came as someone with a vision, and Sam has shaped and led a team that has grown and now serves us. That was not me. So I didn't go, right, I've got this vision, Sam, can you deliver it for me? Sam came to me and said, here's this thing that I've got, I'm bringing it, what can we do? And that's how I think we should do this. Yes, the eldership are responsible for the direction the church takes, and take decisions, but we are a body together. We all have gifts for the blessing of the body and to shape the vision that we will be. So this, we were trying to journey this just as an eldership before bringing it to you and doing this. And in the end, we were just going around in circles a bit, and we thought we just need to involve the congregation. We need to hear what they want to, what they're thinking, what they're hearing from God, how this might be shaped if we involve a wider audience of people. So I hope that's a helpful response. That's what I want us to do.
I think thank you, Neil, picking up another thing that Luca just said, there was an expression of maybe a slight fear or concern as to what this will look like, and because having gone through this kind of transition before, other people have gotten hurt. So would you just speak into that, just how you feel, how you see this will go?
Do any of you want to?
I'll try. Is this on? Cheers. Without repeating anything, but I think, as Neil just alluded, we don't quite know how it will go, because it's an exciting vision. And when Neil shared it with the elders back in June, I think it was, as we sat in a park at about 5 metres distance from each other, we were very spread out in those days. And but it was nice that we were actually physically present with each other as we threw that idea around. My immediate response to it was very positive. The idea of working with other Christians and tearing down some of the barriers that there are between churches and denominations and congregations, and it's so easy for these barriers to come up and us to feel like we don't really know people. I was very excited about that, and I think everybody else was. I think everyone was keen and enthusiastic, but we didn't know what it was going to look like at all. Neil just said, we've met now with the other elders, and it's really good to know that now I've met them all, they're lovely, lovely people. I feel that we're so in tune with them in how we think, which is great, and perhaps that's why God has led us to talk to this particular church, which isn't geographically very close to us. It's right at the other end of the borough. But as the elders have met and discussed these things, is that better? Okay. As the elders have met and discussed this, we have realised that there are so many questions we don't know the answer to, but we like the idea of working more closely with each other. And Neil's set it out, and Joseph has us working towards becoming one church. I don't really know what that looks like, but none of us do. And what we do want to make sure is that as we grow in deciding how that works, we will become closer to Beulah, we will become closer to other Christians, we will grow in our love and understanding for people that we don't know. We will benefit from this. What it looks like exactly, we couldn't work out as elders, we still can't. Neil's just said we want to involve everybody, and all the input that comes from people such as Luca and every one of you in the hall and at home who think, I prayed into this, and this is the question that I've got in my mind, or this is the excitement I feel, or this is the concern I feel. We want to build on all of that so that we don't force a particular model onto anybody and onto us. We don't want to damage the identity that we have. We are a particular type of people. That's why most of you have come to this church, this congregation, to Croydon Jubilee Church, because it works for you. It's the type of way of worshipping God and meeting with each other and learning to love each other that you like. That's what attracted Francis and myself, and why we're so glad to have brought our family up in this church. And we don't want to change that. We want it to grow and develop, and it's not set in stone yet. Does that answer the question a bit more? There isn't an exact way. We're exploring it. We're just excited to move forward in that direction. Luca, you've removed your mask. Are you going to shout something to Jazz again?
No, I realise I asked the question. I realise it's not going to be possible to answer it right now. This may be a question for you to consider, and not just you, but for other people. I don't think we can sort it out today. That's fine.
Okay.
Luca was just reassuring us that he didn't need an answer today. It was just a comment to discuss. The roadies have been hard at work, and they've managed to set up a microphone on the floor. We're hoping it will work, and Lynn is making her way across, so go for it, Lynn.
Is this working? Yes.
Not yet.
Just give us a second and it will come up, and Gary's doing all the clever stuff on the iPad.
Hello. Anyway, I'll go now. There have been, as a church, we have always, my understanding, especially when Nicky was here and then Ian with Sharpen Up, we have placed great value on prophecy, and that has been a huge amount of prophecy over the years. There have been many prophecies that have referred to 7 congregations. There are some, I believe, that actually mention one part of us working with Beulah. Would it be helpful to publish some of that to the congregation? Because none of us want good ideas, we all want to follow the God ideas.
Cool, thank you. Lynn was just commenting that actually she's aware of lots of prophecy that has been shared over the years, referring to some of the 7 congregations and also working together with Beulah. And would it be helpful to have those published for both congregations? I'm figuring that looking at the nods, that's a yes. There you go. I'm sure that will be done somehow. Cool. Anybody else for any questions? And I'm looking on the screen to see if there's any coming up. Nothing on the screen? Okay, Ben. Sorry? There's nothing. Oh, is there? Oh. It hasn't updated on my... Oh, okay. What does one church look like when asking people to participate and get involved? Did we answer that already?
No.
Okay.
No, we haven't. So sorry, yeah, let me set the mask off again. We're talking about becoming one church in multiple locations. So although if we did this, we would be a member of one church. We would be first of all part of a congregation. So I will be first of all I'll be part of whatever the one church is, but my serving would be worked out in the congregation that I'm a part of. So there would be both things happening at the same time. We'd be serving our own congregation, we'd be serving the one church. And that's another thing that we're not totally sure how it works out, but it's the lifting of the gaze to it's more than us. It's the call of God. It's the call to Croydon. And we would be serving, as I say, both the one church and the unity and the togetherness of working together, but also serving through good relationships in life groups and in your congregation, the people that you're with.
That's great. Thank you, Neil. Ben's coming up. Sam, I'm just going to tell you that no comments are appearing on my feed here, so if there are any more, you can send me them by messenger if you want, or put them on the screen. Oh, there you go. Ben, give us a moment and we'll do this one. Life groups are a key element of church life. Will they continue to be? Will life groups be pushed strongly?
Unless anyone else wants to speak, I'll say yes, absolutely. I think life groups are the engine room of church life. Not everyone can get to a life group easily because of work and family life, but where people can, I would always strongly encourage people to do so, to find relationships, to live with one another through ups and downs. That will always be important. Again, that would be worked out locally and in a congregational setting, but what exactly that looks like, I mean, a year ago, I led a change to life groups, didn't I? And we moved to a monthly cycle, and it was beginning to bed in, and then lockdown happened, and so on. But no, life groups are hugely important and will always be hugely important.
Cool, thank you. All right, I'm going to hand over to Bernard, who's got a question for us.
Hello, am I on? Okay, very excited about exploring this. Came and went.
There it is.
My question...
Whoa!
Oh, wait, no. My question is partly looking back in order to go forward. So, with the congregation in New Addington, we were a 2-congregation church in the past. And that went on for some years. And then the New Addington congregation closed, that ended. And is there something that we need to understand or share or learn about our experience of being a 2-congregation church that would help us as we look at being a multi-congregation church going forward? I'm not clear or sure why New Addington congregation didn't work or what happened there. I'm sure you guys have pondered it and understood it better.
I mean, Jazz has written a dissertation on it, so.
So yeah, looking back to understand in order to go forward.
Thanks, Bernard. Yeah, I have written a dissertation on it, but depends who wants to read it. Okay, anyway, go for it.
Neither was I. With a microphone.
I don't think we know the answer to Bernard's question, but it's a question we have asked ourselves. And we know that we want to learn from what happened in that experience. And I'm sure that that will be at every stage of this conversation about where we might go in a partnership, a very close partnership with Beulah, and the idea of becoming one with them. We will be reflecting on lessons learned from our experience of being two congregations with the church in New Addington. And if we can say, well, what went wrong there? How can we do things differently? How can we do things better? That will be done. But that question has certainly arisen in many people's minds amongst us just in the last couple of months already. So I don't know if I can give you an exact answer, but we will learn. We will reflect. Thank you, Bernard.
I don't have an answer, but I will comment. I did do a whole dissertation on New Addington and what happened there and all the rest of it. All I can say, these guys will work that out, but all I can say is this looks wholeheartedly and completely different to that went on before, if that helps. So just my understanding of the two different things, they look completely different, but there are a lot of lessons to learn. You are absolutely right, Bernard. Okay.
Right, I want to say something just in addition to that. That's all right. So this is not a unilateral decision which we're making. This is not just what we think here as part of this congregation. Beulah are obviously having the other side of the conversation as well. And that's why it's not a done deal. That's why there is, it's a direction that we're heading in. It's not a destination which is being fully articulated, and we don't know quite what it looks like in many respects. I don't think that dynamic was quite happening before. I wasn't here when New Addington and Selsdon joined before, so I wasn't party to any of the conversations. But we have, we're just half of the relationship speaking here, and it's important that we say what we want to say and discuss what we want to discuss. But Beulah are doing the same thing, and as we work through this, which will take some time, that will all have to be fully taken into account and worked out together. And you know, our elderships are comparable in size, in service, and so forth. And so I think that's the basis for the start of some good decision making to happen, which obviously will then involve both churches on a wider scale.
Yeah, and that's why it looks different. So thank you, John. And then I've had a question come in online which simply says, will there be a joint eldership, and how do we, was two questions. So one is, will there be a joint eldership, and two, how would we get to know the other people? That's how it was worded, sorry.
That is one of the big questions. And we don't know. We as I say, we will be straddling being one church and being local congregations. There are models for that out there. Hope Church in Bromley, where Trevor Payne came from, is one. King's Church in Catford is one. Everyday Church in Wimbledon, where I came from, is one. But just because those models exist, it doesn't mean that's the way that we are going to necessarily organise the leadership of what we may become. We're not totally sure. And then what was the second part of the question, Jazz?
How do we get to know the other congregations?
Yeah. Slowly, especially because of lockdown. We're going to have a prayer meeting together on Zoom soon. I'll send details out for that shortly. And we will just seek to have as many opportunities to do that as we can in the coming weeks and months. But obviously it's made more difficult by our second national lockdown, but also the restrictions that were over us before we entered this month-long lockdown anyway. So, yeah, over time. And if you have any ideas, let us know.
Oh, go on, Angus.
It is a very strange time to be getting to know another church when we feel we don't even see much of each other at the moment. It's such a weird time since March, isn't it? I feel that 3/4 of the people that are part of my church, Croydon Jubilee Church, this congregation, I haven't seen for ages, apart from briefly on Zoom occasionally, which isn't the same. So it's a really strange time to think about getting to know a whole new set of people, because I think we will get to know them better, hopefully after lockdown, but it doesn't mean that it's not a good direction to travel, and I don't think it will stop us being united and close as a congregation, as Croydon Jubilee Church. It's not going to fragment us, because it can't, because that's not what, I don't believe that's what God would ask of us. We have got to be united in our love for each other to be able to be a benefit to the Church of Beulah and vice versa. So I think there will be those stronger relationships which we will keep as strong as we can through lockdown, through life group, through whatever contact we can have now in this slightly curtailed environment of COVID-19. But it will grow in the future. I mean, I'm glad we had the opportunity to meet the elders in person from the other church, and I think I can see benefits, going back to the first part of that question, in having a sort of joint eldership, but I still think the elders from the two separate congregations will work on those congregations. That's where they live, that's where their hearts are. But there will be benefits of sharing in the wisdom of these other people. I mean, I've really enjoyed, like, when John Cleveley came and preached, for example, I'll just use that as an example. I didn't know John Cleveley very well. I've heard the name so many times. He was one of Paul Barrett's good friends, and I hadn't even met him until one of the joint prayer meetings for Croydon back just before lockdown. It was the first time I met him, and he came up to me and said, "So you do exist? I heard there was a sixth elder or a fifth elder. There was always this unknown elder at Jubilee, and it was you, Angus, and I didn't believe you actually existed. Or they were embarrassed about you and kept you secret because I just happened to have missed the meetings that John was at." But when we knew that there was this idea to bond our two churches to grow us closer together, and then John came and preached, it was just lovely listening to him and thinking there's wisdom in what this other church can give to us, and hopefully we can give to them. And again, as Neil said earlier, the prophecy group, the Sharpen Up group that Ian and others have been involved with was part of that. And I can just see there being strength as we get to know each other as elderships and as time goes by as congregations. But it won't be artificially done. We're not going to shove everyone together. We've got enough work at the moment just trying to keep in touch with each other because of the constraints.
Cool. Thank you, Angus. I believe, Ben, you've got a question for us, so you grab the mic.
So unfortunately, I've got a couple of questions. So I think, first of all, thank you so much for the honest and candid explanation of where you feel God is leading us. And I really appreciate that it's, just like in my personal walk, it might not be clear what every part of that journey looks like step by step. But my first question is really, and I think Angus sort of alluded to the context. So we are at a point where it still feels like it's just the other day that Paul left. I know it's a few years now. And then we had lockdown, and now we're kind of isolated from one another. It's not the kind of fellowship is not ideal because of the fact that we can't see each other. We're about to go into lockdown. And I think that kind of brings certain anxieties when you're kind of in this unfamiliar territory. And perhaps for some of us, it might also be that we've also seen perhaps unfamiliar faces come in and talk to us. So my first question around that is how do we kind of how do we address that? How do we perhaps maybe calm our nerves where this kind of change is coming? And secondly, the bureaucrat in me kind of wants to ask, whether it's questions, whether it's the uncertainty, whether it's how we feel we're going to go forward, is there an intention to perhaps maybe articulate some of those early plans or early thoughts to provide maybe some of us to perhaps pray over them or maybe to ask questions? And a sub-question to that is that given that perhaps some of us might not want to speak over the media that we're using right now, or even ask what might be perhaps some more difficult questions like the one I've just asked? Is there going to be a way for those questions to be articulated?
Thank you, Ben. Yes, I mean, I think we're aware of the limitations of this technology and this time, and so this is what we've chosen to do. Am I on though? Am I on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Yeah, good. So we are aware of the limitations of this time, and I think it would probably be good in response to some of the feedback I've had if we have another opportunity relatively soon, probably on Zoom, for you to be able to ask those more difficult questions, more sensitive questions that you may not feel comfortable to ask here now or from online.
And I'm sure all of the elders are approachable, and you can ring them. You know, that method of technology still works. Yeah. You can talk to them, you can email them. You know, you can still do that. They will happily talk with you.
Donna says, should there be a joint eldership now, so the rest of church know who they all are, faces, etc., and giftings? And there's something from an assumption that I can't find.
Okay.
There. She's there.
We've been working with Beulah in kids clubs and schools, also in the Bridge in New Addington and Thornton Heath. God is steps ahead of all of us. So there's an encouragement and an exhortation from Lorna.
This actually is the thing that I forgot when I was in the practical P of the three things, is kids club. But we've mutually benefited from our relationship together in that. Lorna Assumption opened up Gilbert Scott. Lorna Assumption opened up Gilbert Scott for Kids Club to Beulah Family Church. Sally, Drace and Letitia opened up Greenvale to Beulah for Kids Club. Beulah Kids Club team have supported Lorna in the Kids Club work that we've done in New Addington. So there have been times in our history where this relationship has been a really beneficial one, and I believe God's calling us to do more than just build on that, but we can build on that, and we can see more of those opportunities happen in the future.
Brilliant. And just picking up Donna's question, will there be opportunities to meet the other elders sooner rather than later?
I think it's a good idea. We can definitely talk about how we might do that.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, COVID is causing all kinds of problems for everyone in every area of life. It's a significant factor which is going to impede the speed at which we do this. That might not be a bad thing in that particular area. And within any group of people that are going through something like this, there will be certain tensions where some people want to press faster, some people want to go slower. And it may be that the way COVID is going to impact this will force us to slow down, and that may cause us to take better decisions than we may otherwise have done. So I'm going to put a positive spin on that, if you like. But that means we do need patience. It means we need grace. This is a relational thing, and relationships there are no shortcuts to it. It is about time, it is about presence, it is about communicating. We're not going to do a joint eldership straight away. I think that would be too quick, but certainly we need to get to know everybody or a larger number of people, and that is going to take time. So sort of also is partly to do with Ben's question about allaying people's anxieties. I don't have a good answer to that question other than things are happening relatively slowly. There will be change. There's always change. There's a lot of change in society in general anyway. And one thing I think we probably could do is encourage ourselves, and this is something I need to bear in mind as a preacher, but also what we talk about in life groups, what we're praying about, what we're choosing to listen to and expose ourselves to, is a lot of change is coming in society in general, regardless of what we do as a church. In us hanging together in our relationships here, that will be an important rock that we stand on, of course not the rock, but a rock, to help us navigate our anxieties over uncertainty in the future. And that's why it's important that we, as it says in Hebrews chapter 10, do not give up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, it says. And that's an important challenge to our times, because it's difficult to meet together. But nevertheless, we have to carry on doing it, and we will find a measure of stability and God's grace and spirit at work in us as we do that. So I think Ben's question is an excellent question, but it's actually set within a broader context of all kinds of things that are going on in the world at the moment. And It's something we do need to address on our own, but as a church as well, as to how we're going to navigate that sort of uncertainty and instability which is coming. And being together, not giving up on one another, extending grace to one another, thinking the best of one another in all of our relationships is going to be a very important part of navigating that successfully.
Can I say something else about that as well? I've just so I don't know if you realised what I was saying, but when I felt God say to me that you're going to work together and you're going to serve Him, one of the things that is quite clear in my mind is that Joseph will become the lead elder of the one church that we may become. And we worked from a prophecy when I came into eldership here of the parallel road, and we had the interim lead elder, and the road was fixed before we came back onto the road. And we, at the time, we put into action a plan where John would be the interim lead elder, and we believed that I was going to be the lead elder that would take us on into the future. And I think we were right to enact that plan. I don't think we made a mistake at all. John did a great job, and I'm very thankful for all of the eldership, and I'm thankful for the role that John played at that time. But there's a sense in me that I'm the interim lead elder, that actually that what we're doing now is, if I can refer you back to that prophetic word that held us through that transition from Paul to John to me, that prophetic word held us then. And I want to call us to hold on to that prophetic encouragement again, that God would have us from Paul to me to Joseph. You know, that may not, allay fears and anxieties, but I think that God's got us in this. And I think he's got a good plan. I think we miss Paul not just because we love him, but because of a gift that he carried that, with the greatest respect to my peers here, I don't think any of us are gifted in quite the same way Paul was. Paul had an apostolic gift, and Joseph does, and I don't. And I think I see the wisdom of God in that, and I think that we will be blessed by involving a wider net of giftings into us as a body.
Okay, thank you. Time has really gone on, so we've just got time for one very last quick question. But the conversation is not over. Today is just the start of a conversation, and we will continue to have this conversation, I guess. So the last question is, will there be a name change?
Almost definitely.
There you go. Almost definitely. That came on the internet, so I don't know who asked it. Sorry, Karen.
Exactly the same question. It's going to be, I think, names are really important. And being known as Beulah Selsdon branch is not the same thing as other names.
So Karen just commented there that names are really important and wouldn't want to be called Beulah Selsdon because that wouldn't be the same as having a new name. Did I get that right? Cool.
As I said, this isn't a takeover of one church by another. So a picture that I find helpful is of, two caterpillars entering a chrysalis and coming out as one butterfly. So we will be a new thing.
Cool.
I don't think we'll be a butterfly church. Don't think it'll be a new name. And I think the name will have to come later because we don't know what it's going to look like yet, and the name's got to say what it is. So, Ron Seal. But yes, so that's a long way down the line. But you make an important point, Karen.
So, guys, we're going to draw this to a close now, and I can't reiterate it enough. We've just started the conversation, so please continue the conversation. Do ring the elders, talk to them, whatever you need to do, and send in more questions as you need them answered. Let me pray, and then I'm going to let you guys go and switch off the internet and everything else that happens on a Sunday. Father, I want to thank you for all that you are saying and all that you are speaking to us about. I thank you that we serve a God who is not the God of confusion or the God of riddles, but you are the God of clarity, and you bring light into every situation. And Father, I pray for your wisdom, just as Sally reminded us at the beginning today. Father, we need your wisdom in all of this. That, Father, you would speak to each of us individually, that we would just get caught up in all that you're saying and all that you want, Father, for your kingdom to be further established here in Selsdon, in Croydon, in the nation and in the nations. Father, I thank you that you have called us to this great thing. Amen.